What's up, Dolphins? I'm Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease. And man, have we been waiting all season for a performance like that. A complete team effort and a total domination for the Miami Dolphins.
Hey, I'm Jeff Ganina. The defense showed up today. Shut them down.
And Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Dolphins, and Mike McDaniel threatened that we may have to change our playing style, and it looks like they did.
Fins up! It's the Dolphins Squad. Everything Miami Dolphins, every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from South Beach. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Sunshine, speed, and squad goals. The Dolphins Squad Show starts now.
All right, Grease, Z, and Kyle. Z's in the middle where he belongs. We figured out how to keep him there. And the Miami Dolphins were in the middle of everything today in Atlanta. What a performance. Their best of the season, easily 34-10. They defeat the Falcons on a road in a game that we all saw coming after that Browns game, and we were scared heading into this one. As a group, we know as a fan base, and the Dolphins showed nothing last week in Cleveland, did not score an offensive touchdown, and today, the complete opposite, a complete domination, Kyle, of the Atlanta Falcons. I know that shot's celebratory this week. Last week, you were drowning your sorrows. This week, it's raising the roof, and what a performance. We start with the team element, Kyle, and I mean, every statistical category, every facet of the game, offense, defense, special teams. This Miami Dolphins team got off the plane on a mission in the ATL, and they stuck it to not a great, but a pretty good Atlanta Falcons team on the road that had the number 2 defense in the league and the number 3 run game in the NFL coming in. Miami just wiped the floor with them from start to finish.
Yeah, I think that's the impressive thing for me is obviously off the heels of a game like the one you just played last week in Cleveland. It's kind of look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, who am I? Right? It's the Derek Zoolander scene. Who am I? And this team has some guys with some pride. And whether it was Jordyn Brooks, the way that he flew around, whether it was Alec Ingold, whether it was Mike McDaniel, I think for the first time in Mike McDaniel's entire tenure with the Dolphins, they played with a 6th offensive lineman on the field, in part because they had to, because Julian Hill didn't dress, and they elevated Hayden Rusi off the practice squad. So you had Greg Dulcich, who took Darren Waller's spot, and Tanner Connor. Those were the only tight ends on the roster. So they go, I know it's the first time this year. I'm pretty sure it's the first time Mike McDaniel in Miami has ever gone with 6 offensive linemen on the field. And we did some adjustments in that regard, but defensively, 213 yards of offense. I know we talked about that in the pre-show as far as a lot of that was in garbage time, right? They had less penalties for less yards. They won time of possession. They won the turnover battle. They were better in the red zone. They made 5 trips into the red zone versus just 2 for Atlanta. A total team, to your point, Grease, victory in this game that off the heels of what you just played, that's what you want to see as you're trying to figure out what you are and who you want to have around, not just for the rest of this year, but as you try to figure out who you're going to be long-term.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase, Z. And I'll tell you this, man, it was like Kyle said, all facets. We'll get to the numbers in a minute. They didn't just win the statistical categories. They dominated them. They made the Falcons look like a peewee team, but it started with the defense and the running game. But really, the defense set the tone. Miami went 3 and out on their first possession. In fact, I jumped the gun and texted you guys in the group, oh, no, here we go again, because -1 yard, incompletion, sack, boom, there it is, right? All of a sudden, same old Dolphins offense, but that's where it ended right there because the defense came out, held the Falcons to a 3 and out on their first possession, and you could see from the first snap of the game defensively, the Dolphins were playing fast. They were playing downhill. They saw some things on film that they could exploit against this Falcons offense with Michael Penix out and Kirk Cousins in. But even with one of the best backs in the league back there in Bijan Robinson, this Dolphin defense played their best game of the season by far, but they completely dominated this game and set the tone from the start.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the first play, I think it was Chubb's jumping around after the play, showing a lot of energy. And I was like, that's what I want to see. I hope he keeps it. I hope the whole defense. And then they stopped, Bijan, twice in that drive on runs and shut him down. So it was a great 3 and out to start the game. And then we went back out, and I believe our next drive on offense, we got points, which is phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? And we just kept rolling from there.
And Kyle, I mean, what a performance by Jordyn Brooks today, man. One of the best players in the NFL this season, a Pro Bowl level, one of the top tacklers, maybe the top tackler, I think, in the NFL, had 10 tackles today, 7 solo, 3 for a loss, and a sack. What a and a forced fumble. What a performance by Jordyn Brooks today. He was the man out there on that field.
Yeah, he's pretty consistently been one of the better players on the Dolphins defense on a game in and game out basis, but felt like he found another gear today as far as just how aggressive he was getting downhill into the box. And that's been a challenge at times where he is the coverage guy amongst the two linebackers for what he can do on the back end. So you wonder what Kirk Cousins, as a quarterback that doesn't have the same amount of arm strength and not the same amount of mobility, how that maybe fueled into how they chose to play this game. You think about no Drake London on the outside. That was a big loss for Atlanta. That's your comfortably your best wide receiver. You remove him from the mix. You really felt like Atlanta kind of offensively played through a straw like Miami did last week against Cleveland, where it was really limited as far as where areas of the field they're trying to push the ball downfield. They're having miscommunications with guys trying to work those routes. So I think that kind of fueled into this game and just kind of helped pour gasoline on the fire for Miami to really play aggressive into the line of scrimmage and have that second level of those guys really getting down into the teeth of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and the other thing, Z, that I was listening, I always listen to the games with the local broadcast with Jimmy and Joe, who do a tremendous job, Cephalo and Rose, and, you know, all those glory years in the 80s with Marino, but those guys, tremendous job calling the game. And they were talking about, and I'll use a term that we love to use in the NFL, the Falcons are lighting the ass up front. I mean, they're about 290 across that line of scrimmage, and it showed today. The Dolphins had their way on the line of scrimmage. I love the way, though, that Mike used both Achane and Ollie Gordon. They couldn't stop either one. Together, they went well over 100. Achane, I believe, was like 18 for 67, something like that. And then you look at Gordon, and they both had a touchdown in the passing game, but well over 100 yards rushing. They got Jalen Wright involved as well in the run game, gave him different looks, mentioned 6 offensive linemen. They had the 6 offensive linemen going in motion on a couple of plays, just incredibly creative offense, but still smash mouth football, running the football downhill to set up Tua, who we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, the run game was on today from the get-go, which was great to see. I think that one drive where they had 10 runs and 3 passes on their the touchdown drive that they had. I mean, that's great to see. And as a defense, you love that because you get your break. You get to go through your corrections with your coaches longer instead of just 3 and out, you know, and it's like a tennis match. And you never get caught up. You never get your corrections. And then the bottom's going to fall out on you. And that's what we've been talking since day one with this show, and we got our losing streak, was we got to get the offense to keep us off the field defensively so we have a chance.
Yeah, and Kyle, I'm going to get to it. We waited just about 8 minutes, and we ripped them the last couple of weeks. 3 interceptions in each of the last 2 games. You think back to those 2 games that they lost by a total of 4 points. You throw in the New England game with the punt return and then the kick return right after it. This team, you could look at that record. You have to win the games, but very, very close except for that one blowout loss. Came out on fire today. Tua, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 206 yards, 20 of 26, spreading the ball all over the place, almost always off play action. The rollout touchdown pass was unbelievable. Just really good with the ball fakes today. Sold him on the play action all game long. And in 2 career games against the Falcons, he's got 8 touchdowns and no picks. And you think maybe he had some Bama flashbacks playing in that stadium again, but Tua might be, when it's all said and done and the dust settles, this might be the best performance of any quarterback in the league this week.
Yeah, and what I like about it is we talked about the backs and the impact that they had in the passing game. And we found some new ways to kind of manufacture some of those touches that you like to get your playmakers, the touches towards the perimeter or outside the numbers or right on the numbers, but without it being those perimeter screens that it really felt like they spammed at times where guys lined up. Maybe you do a stack formation and the back guy.
That's a great word for it. I love that word.
Takes a step back, and they ran it 6, 7, 8 times a game, right? And you kind of know, okay, it's condensed formation. They're in a stack. Which one of these guys is going to step back and take the screen pass? So now they start running this kind of angle Texas route out of the backfield, and they're releasing Brewers, the center, and he's picking off guys at the numbers near the line of scrimmage, and that was the Ollie Gordon catch and run. 1 catch for 20 yards for him and the touchdown in the passing game. Devon Achane had a touchdown in the passing game, and that was releasing out of the backfield, which looked like it was some kind of I don't know exactly the concept. Looked like mesh traffic maybe was the concept where you're running crosses across the middle. You're trying to create a natural pick for the guy who's running out of the backfield. So love that they got those guys involved in the passing game in ways that were built off of the running game, and doing so in a way that allowed you to have high percentage throws, right? It was kind of one of the things that you were hoping to see in the wet weather game last week, and we didn't get a lot of it. Some of it's because the score got away from you so fast, but it goes right back into complementary football. And Achane, you mentioned the rushing production, but he had 91 yards of total offense. Ollie Gordon has 66 yards of total offense. You had over 150 yards of total offense between those two guys. And I really liked the adjustments that they made in that regard. And you just maybe lament a little bit that, hey, where was this a little earlier in the season? Because you wonder what it could look like.
Yeah, and not to mention 28 yards from Jaylen Wright thrown on top of that. So from the running back position, that's a hell of a lot of production. We talked about it in the midweek show, guys, featuring the running backs more, playing them at the same time on some plays. I never expected Mike to go with that 6th offensive lineman, though, Z, and the tight end spot eligible, which was pretty amazing. To that point, how nice was it for you to see, as a guy who played for so long and coached for so long, the coaching staff as a whole, but Mike McDaniel coached his ass off today, man. There was so much creativity in this game plan. They came out ready. They came out fired up, but they had the Falcons off balance all day long.
Yeah, they sure did. I thought Mike called a heck of a game today. You know, like I said, he got that run game back to his roots. That's where, you know, he made his grain out in San Francisco, Cleveland days. You know, he's with Kyle, in Atlanta with Kyle. You know, that was the bread and butter to get that offense rolling. You know, he went back to his roots, got it rolling in the run game, and Tua got a success in the air.
Yeah, and Kyle, I mean, they did, and people are pointing it out in the chat. It's amazing. You know, I used to date a girl for 8 years, and her family didn't get along. So her mom used to say about her sister's side of the family, like, just leave them alone. They'll start fighting with each other. That's what they're doing in the chat right now over Tua. But, I mean, it's a lightning rod. They did have a batted ball with a pick that was dropped, and there were some things, and people are pointing that out. But the reality is no turnovers. And after what we've seen these past few weeks, not just the turnovers being completely out of sync in Cleveland, throwing off the back foot, happy feet from Tua, penalties and turnovers had been killing this team. And when you look at the stat sheet right now, I'm just going to read these team stats, guys, real quick. I mean, 24-11 first downs for Miami. 24. You don't see that in an NFL game. 24-11, right? Total plays 65-49, and it got a little bit closer late in the game. Total yards 338-213. Rushing yards 141-45. With Bijan Robinson, that's 2 weeks in a row, by the way, the Falcons couldn't run the ball. They saw some things from the Niners game, you know, which we talked about on Wednesday as well. But in the red zone, they went 3 out of 5. That's where Tua is always at his best. Penalties, only 4 for 54 yards. And Kyle, time of possession, the most important stat, 37-58 to 22. The Falcons had the ball barely over 22 minutes. 22 minutes and 2 seconds, time of possession.
I'm glad you mentioned time of possession, because I want to shout out Ollie Gordon for the carry that he had right before the 2-minute warning at the end of the first half. He slides down inbounds. And that's a really savvy play for a 6th-round rookie to get a chunk gain, to get out in space and say, hey, we're on the north side of the 2-minute warning. We've got all 3 timeouts. We're on the plus side of the field. We're in a 4-minute offense situation where we want to have the ball last to end the period. He goes down in bounds instead of running out of bounds and forcing the team to have to run another play on the north side of the 2-minute warning. And the clock runs all the way down to the 2-minute warning. So that you lose that extra timeout. They end up scoring a touchdown with 11 seconds left in the half. Like, that's a really smart play for Ollie Gordon in that moment to understand we have all our timeouts. If we get pressed for time, we have it at our disposal. So let's play the possession game. And that's where you get savvy plays like that. I remember in the preseason, he had a fielded kickoff where his foot was out of bounds intentionally, so it gets called as a flag, and you get the ball on the 40-yard line. Like, little things like that for a young player like that is a first-class ticket for me to get more opportunities and getting on the field. So the time of possession, to your point, and 3 of their touchdown drives, 13 plays, 8 minutes and 33 seconds time of possession, 10 plays, 82 yards, 429. That was the 4-minute offense situation where they scored with 11 seconds left in the half.
Masterfully used them.
And then they go 10 plays, 84 yards in 6 minutes and 5 seconds in the third quarter. So those possessions and 10 plus plays, and there's a lot to like here, even if it wasn't perfect. And I acknowledge that there's plays when you watch the tape, there's going to be a lot of corrections to make, but they're always a lot nicer to make when you're making them off a win.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt you, Kyle. That drive got me excited toward the end of the first half. They saved all 3 timeouts. They used them beautifully. They didn't panic. They knew they had the field goal unit ready to run out there. And that last play where Tua hits Malik Washington, even the radio guys got fooled on that one. He's rolling out. Beautiful job on that one. They're all, Tua's just going to throw it away. Oh, no, he's not. It's a touchdown. And that was beautiful right there at the very end of the half with 11 seconds left. They had the ball. That play started with 18 seconds. They scored with the 11 seconds. They didn't settle for 3. And it just was really at that point, you just knew that game was over. And they knew it too, because they came out in the second half and continued the dominance. And we're going to talk about that on the other side. They got Waddle involved. It was later in the game in the third quarter as they're running it. Play action, short passing game, Tua, accuracy, and then they hit the big play. And that's the order it should be in. So many times you see this team try for the big play early and often, and then especially with Tyreek Hill, but then they became a dink and dunk team, and now they're starting to open it up a little bit more, as that's what happens when you run the ball effectively. Everybody starts to creep up for the runs and the short passes, and then you hit them with a big play with Jaylen Waddle, and all it took was a safety to take a bad angle, bang, right to the house, and another touchdown for Miami. This is your Dolphin Squad show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's Kyle Krabs, that's Jeff Scanita. I'm Jim Grieshaber, and we have a long time left here, right here with you this afternoon before we wrap it up on the show. And before we do, a couple of words from our sponsors. We'll come back, talk a little bit more about the offense and the big play from Waddle that got it going in the second half, and how the Dolphins never took their foot off the gas in this game. Keep it right here. Hang out with us, Dolphin Squad show on the Locked On Podcast Network. While I tell you that this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I, we make decisions every day, right? But on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds, a minute to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates: California, Texas, Georgia, some of the biggest states, and then those Falcons fans not loving it in Georgia today. But I've been using Prize Picks for football Sundays, NBA tip-offs. It just keeps getting more and more exciting. Action on the action. You pick your favorite players like Pat Mahomes, like Steph Curry, like Tua Tagovailoa, for crying out loud. And how about the new Stacks feature? It's a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Best player in the NBA so far this year. Well, Luka Doncic, 1. Steph Curry, 2. But if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineups from a loss. And that's a big thing with Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it is good to be right on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gents, let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've heard them all before. In the bedroom, whether it's stress or I'm tired or it happens to everyone sometimes, when it comes time to perform, sometimes your body needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiit comes in. Rugiit offers fast-acting doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. They also make it easy to get started. You get connected with a board-certified doctor 100% online with no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly to your front door. Visit Rugiit.com/LockedOnNFL to get 15% off your order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNFL so they know we sent you. Rugiit, to stop making excuses and start making moves.
All right, there we go. Man, it's Grease, it's Z, it's Kyle. 34-10 in the ATL, the beatdown, and the squad show. A lot more fun than last week, huh, guys? I mean, I know it was a cold game. It was a wet game. Things get away from you. It snowballed in the rain. But, you know, the Falcons were without some guys today. It's an indoor stadium. It's perfect for Tua, and he responded today with his biggest game of the season, and he's owned the Falcons in 2 career games against them. But what a performance, spreading the ball around. And then they hit the big play to Waddle, which, to me, that was pretty much the play that put the game away. You're talking about the third quarter, and, the Falcons were just obviously snake bit from the beginning, and everything Miami's offense was doing was working. But, you forced that fumble, and then right after the fumble, bang, Miami scores again. And just an unbelievable job all day long by the Dolphins offense. But the big play to Waddle, you could kind of see that play being set up. You could just see that Mike knew it was coming, and they were just setting him up for it.
Yeah, you can see it all the way. We kind of come out of half. I was getting a little worried that here we go again, like we've been every week. Slow out of half, kind of trying to find our way. Didn't feel the energy right away till that big turnover, and then that play by Waddle was perfectly timed to get us going again.
What was impressive to me about that was as a chunk play from 43 yards out, it's now the third 40-plus yard completion between Tua and Jaylen Waddle without Tyreek Hill in the lineup. And if you guys remember, we had that whole Tyreek Hill explosive play watch, right? Where, it's been a calendar year, 12 months to the day since Tyreek Hill's had a 30-plus yard completion as a member of the Dolphins. Well, now Tyreek's out of the lineup, and Waddle has 3 40-plus yard plays in 4 games. And that includes, obviously, the game last week where he had 1 catch for 15 yards. So he's good for at least one of these a game right now without Tyreek in the lineup. And I think if you continue to play this brand of football, what I loved was the run after catch. That was what made Waddle so good in 22 when Mike first got there. And, okay, everybody's attention's on Tyreek, and he gets the 1,700 yards. But Waddle led the league amongst qualifying receivers in yards per catch that year. And a lot of that was because of what he did with the ball in his hands. That hasn't necessarily been the case last year and this year. So to see some of those opportunities where, hey, we're getting to that sweet spot. Hey, we're going to snap that thing maybe a little flatter than we have in years past and accelerate through that and get a runaway opportunity. That's what I love to see. And I love seeing explosive plays for Jaylen Waddle because I think the wide receiver 1 mantle long-term in Miami is in really good hands with Jaylen. It's just been a matter of opportunity and targets, and he's getting it now, and they're finding a way to have those explosive plays come back into the offense as a part of it without Tyreek Hill. I think that's a big argument case for Waddle long-term.
And without Waller today with the pec injury and obviously 2 tight ends out with injuries. So no Hill, no Waller, and Jaylen Waddle really stepped up. He had 5 for 99, 19.8 yard average for Jaylen Waddle, had the touchdown, but Malik Washington was good, had the 4 catches for 36 yards and the one right before the half, which was huge in this game. Achane and Gordon each had one in the passing game out of the backfield. They were targeting Westbrook Achane in this game. Didn't get much from the tight ends, but 9 different receivers caught balls today, Z. 9 different receivers in 20 completions from Tua. 21 total if you count Zach Wilson's 1 for 1. So 21 completions to 9 guys, man. That's pretty damn good in any NFL game. Any coach, any offensive coordinator would love that anytime they suit up and play.
Oh, yeah, and I thought the O-line played a great game today. Gave Tua some time. I know it was all quick passing and all that, but still, there wasn't a lot of guys in his face, when he had to drop back and set up and find his receivers. So I thought, it was pretty solid up front.
Yeah, and Kyle, your final thoughts on what the offense did today? We'll transition out to the defense, and they deserve just as much of our love today in that conversation because they played phenomenally. But your final thoughts on what the offense was able to do today, man, because it was easily their best game of the season.
Yeah, I like that it was a methodical approach, right? It felt like kind of content to play the body blows game. And whether that was because we had 6 offensive linemen out and that changes the eligibles, or what they did from getting some power concepts involved and getting both Wright and Ollie Gordon running those guys downhill at times. I thought it was really well executed against a front that had a lot of disruption, but you embrace the idea of, hey, they play small. You're going to play other teams that have small fronts, right? You've got a team in Western New York who you have not been able to beat, but you've been able to run the ball on with consistency for years, right? So having a game like this, and I'm hoping for the powers that be, there's some positive reinforcement for how this game played out. And lo and behold, you weren't chasing a bunch of explosive plays in the passing game, and you still got 30-plus points anyway. It's funny how that works out for you sometimes.
Yeah, and I just want to mention, I know there's no love for the Jets in here, but Nick Mangold, man, 41 years old, passed away. That's really – and the Jets scored 23 points in the fourth quarter to beat the Bengals on the road 39-38 and dedicated to him. I mean, I don't care if you hate him or not. That's a hell of a story, and good for the Dolphins to get this win to stay ahead of them.
Yes, without a doubt. It's sad for his family and everything. I've played against him. He's a good dude, and it's a sad time for just not just the Jets but all of the NFL.
Yeah, and Kyle, for the Jets to score 23 points in the fourth quarter, they don't score 23 points a game.
I think I saw a stat. This is the first time in Justin Fields' career that his defense has given up more than 21 points, and he's won the game as the starting quarterback. So
Woody motivated him.
I think he's 1-21 now in his NFL career when his defense gives up more than 21 points. So, and really cool that Breece Hall threw the game-winning touchdown pass in that game to Mason Taylor. So we're talking about Dolphins alumni in the pregame show. We're talking about JT, and we're talking about Zach. Well, Jason's son catches the game-winning touchdown pass from a running back in this game. So I guess probably there's some fun to be had as far as Justin Fields logs his first career win when his defense gives up more than 21 points, but doesn't get to throw the game-winning touchdown pass in the game.
This is where you start to feel old when you're me. I won't take anybody with me on this, but just me, when you start seeing Jason Taylor's kid and Aronde Gadsden Jr., you watch the World Series, there's Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and I'm just going, oh my Lord. But good on them. I mean, they raised professional athletes on their own. Imagine coming through the pressure of being Jason Taylor's son and still making the NFL. Shout out to Mason Taylor for that alone, because I know, and you guys know as well, that's not easy. By the way, the Patriots blew out the Browns 32-13, and the Bills crushed the Panthers on the road 40-9. So things at the top of the division kind of status quo, with the Patriots still a half game ahead of Buffalo. But a good day for the division as a whole, as the Dolphins, Jets, Bills, and of course the Patriots all win this afternoon as we continue here with the squad show. So guys, switching gears a little bit to the defense, and we got a little bit off track. I just thought of Mangold, and even though he was an Ohio State Buckeye, and I'm a Miami Hurricane, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of Hurricanes in here, and he had a great career at Ohio State, tremendous job with the Jets, one of the best centers of his era, and a life cut too short. But getting back to the game today and the defense, Z, I want to start with you on this. It always starts up front on defense, always, with your guys. You're a defensive lineman, you're a defensive line coach. Talk about those guys up front today and what they did, because Kyle mentioned it. I don't want to steal Kyle's thunder, but we talked about Jordyn Brooks pregame, and the first thing Kyle said was Kenneth Grant played a hell of a game too, the rookie.
Yeah, no, I thought up front we did a heck of a job holding the line of scrimmage and not letting guys climb to the second level to our linebackers, to let those guys get in their gaps and have clean windows to see where the ball carrier was going. And again, once we started, we had 9 carries for 10 yards in the first half, or was it?
Yep.
I mean, that's unbelievable against a back like that. That's pretty good. You're playing some good run defense up front. The only thing that was lacking in the game, I thought, was our pass rush up front. I thought we, especially towards the end of the game, I thought we really started lighting them up a little bit more. But all in all, my hat's off to the defense. They came to play today.
They did, and they only sacked Cousins once, Kyle. But Bijan Robinson, 9 carries, 25 yards, 3 catches, I think, for a little. Yeah, 3 catches, 23 yards. So for a guy who was 2 weeks ago on pace to be mentioned in the same breath as Marshall Faulk, these last 2 games, he's come crashing down against the Niners and now against the Dolphins today. But Miami did a fantastic job on him from the start. Had the fumble also.
Yeah, they really compressed the line of scrimmage. And you could feel that, just how crowded he was coming out of the mesh point with the football and not having the big vacant runs where guys are getting knockback. I think that this is the best job the Dolphins defensive line has done on playing across the board for all the positions, getting to the plus side of the line of scrimmage. And that's been the biggest thing for me. Anytime you turn on the coach's tape and you review how the defense is playing, you got maybe a guy on the edge and one of the guys on the inside, and they've got those nice tight hands, and they're getting that knockback with their hands, and they're rising up the pads of the offensive linemen, but not everybody's doing it. And this felt like the game where most consistently you're resetting the line of scrimmage and forcing the back to have to make earlier decisions to declare a gap, because you are compressing the distance from where he's getting the ball to where the lanes are. And that to me felt like it was really prominent in this game. And Bijan didn't have a run longer than 7 yards in this game. You talk about the explosive play issues that they've had. This is an unbelievable effort by that defense. And, the score last week against Cleveland kind of said one thing, but I thought that the way the defense played, when you consider there was a pick six, there was another interception that started the possession at the 2-yard line. This is now 2 games in a row, and against a good Atlanta team at home against an experienced quarterback, and even if he's a little bit more of a limited quarterback these days in Kirk, this defense looks like it's starting to stack some things together. And I think what's going to be interesting is how stable is the offensive effort on a week-by-week basis, and how sustainable is the performance you've seen from the defense, I think, the last 2 weeks now.
Yeah, and even those games, the other 2 games before that when they lost by a total of 4 points, right? You're thinking about those 2 games now and you're going, wow, unbelievable. The Carolina game, they took the lead late. The offense gave them the lead late. And it's those things happen, and you look at those results and the record could be a lot different. And in the NFL, where consistency seems to be completely gone from this league on any level, man, it's just crazy to see what 1 week can do in terms of a difference. And who had the Dolphins +7 today? Raise your hand. Who took the Dolphins +7? I don't know of anybody who did personally, but a beautiful win, 34-10 at Atlanta. We're going to continue talking about this defense on the other side, what they can do to continue this momentum on both sides of the ball and all facets of the game, as they have a real short week and a Ravens team that might be the biggest disappointment in the NFL so far this season. All that coming your way on the Squad Show right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I get a chance to tell you about Game Time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans, cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout, it gets really frustrating. I use Game Time for that reason. And I grew up when they mailed you tickets, or you had to wait in line. You couldn't let anything happen to the tickets, or you're in line half the day. Game Time spoils you, right? The app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, it's easy, and it's backed by the Game Time guarantee. What does that mean? You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. The app makes it super simple. You can see the exact view from your seat, panoramic view, before buying. And then they have zone deals, which is awesome, right? You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats for you, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, it's cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON NFL, Locked On NFL, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And there's Z. All right, there we go.
Scared me, Grease.
Computer froze for a second there. I was waiting to see if we all froze like Han Solo again. I had my power go out on Wednesday. Something you never know. I mean, you're relying on technology these days. You miss the old days of a radio station in the carts that you just erase and stick a new one in. But the technology is a little bit different. And Z's all the way over on the right this time, right? Lining up at defensive end. But 34-10, the final. We've talked about the offense and the numbers they put up. We've talked about the defense and the job they did against the Atlanta offense, guys. What else, Z, stood out to you today, intangibles-wise? We've been through the offense and the defense top to bottom, but intangibles-wise, as a coach, what did you see from this team today that you were really happy to see from the start?
Well, I mean, short field for the offense. We had the fumble that made it a long field. We got the turnover, which is always good. But those fourth downs, that we stopped them on, that's a turnover. We get out on downs. It was a short field for our offense. That's why, our offense numbers weren't that great for all the points we scored, because they have short fields, and that's what you want as a defense, to get the ball over to the offense. So they can get fast scores.
Kyle, how about you? What did you see intangibles wise where you kind of just knew that it was a different team today from the start?
Yeah, it was. I know Z mentioned kind of the energy with Bradley Chubb and the defense up front, and those guys kind of just the attraction to the ball. And there was something that Mike McDaniel said, I think it was on Friday. He was asked, I think it was Marcel Louis-Jacques from ESPN. I always try to give the guys that are there and asking the questions at the pressers acknowledgement if I know who asked the question. I think it was Marcel said, if we wake up on Monday morning and the Dolphins have won this game and they've contained Bijan Robinson, what was the secret to doing it? And Mike said, pack mentality. And I saw that in this game for 60 minutes defensively, whether that's a fourth down effort to Kyle Pitts and a chance to break a tackle. And you got guys flying up from safety, but then you see Zach Sealer coming into the frame 6 yards downfield to try to get over top and help make a tackle from inside out. We talked about the way that they reset the line of scrimmage, the way that they flooded gaps inside and those backers got downhill and Jordyn Brooks was a man possessed. Like it was really impressive to me when it would have been very easy to kind of pack up the bags at 1-6 to see the pride that these guys played with and the effort and strain to make plays, right? Because yes, I think Drake London makes it an easier game plan for you to have a winning formula. I think not having Michael Penix forces Atlanta's passing offense to operate through a little bit more of a straw. It's a little bit more of a narrow area of the field as compared to Penix has a bigger arm to hit stuff downfield and can maybe be a little bit more of an outside structure. I don't think it was 24 points difference, right? And some of that, to Z's point, is field position when you force turnovers on down. But the way that they played today, I don't look at it and say, hey, they won because of things Atlanta didn't have or didn't do. I look at the way the defense played today and say they played winning football today. And that, to me, from an intangible standpoint, stands out in a big way.
I'm going to give you mine as we have a little bit of a technical difficulty here. I'm going to take you guys down because Z can't hear you, Kyle. 1 second here. And there we go. Let's try it again. Well, one more this way. There we go. Z, can you hear him now?
Testing.
Kyle, go ahead.
Yes, now I can hear him.
All right, we got it back. Sometimes you just have to reboot, right, live in the middle of the show. Here's my intangibles that I see. There's a reason why head coaches and quarterbacks make all the money in the NFL, most of it anyway. And we saw that today from Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa. Can you imagine? We sit here doing a show twice a week, guys, and we think we have pressure. People in the chat every single week living and dying, screaming and yelling, and just Dolphin fans are extremely passionate and credible fans for the most part, right? But to imagine the pressure that Tua Tagovailoa has been under after those last two games with 3 picks in each game, the pressure that Mike McDaniel has felt when people ask him first question at every press conference if he's coaching for his job, and his answer every time is, I'm coaching to coach. My job is to get this team ready, not to worry about my job. But in the face of that kind of pressure every single week, especially when the wheels have come off the way that they had in this season, for those two guys to perform the way they did today, and I'm going to say it, Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa were magnificent today. Both of them were magnificent. And I know it takes all week, Z, in practice to get ready. It's a week-long thing. It's not just on game day. But, you're going to rip those guys when it goes bad. You're going to call for their heads. You're going to run them out of town. You got to give them their props on a day like today.
Oh, you have to, because, unlike the people in the chat room, I've been in that seat on both sides as a player and as a coach. And it's no fun to sit there and, play badly, get ripped on by everybody. And nobody knows what you go through on a daily basis. Yes, you say you don't pay attention to it, but you do, because it's your job. I'm not saying Mike doesn't pay attention. He does not want to go out there and lay an egg every Sunday, nor does Tua, nor does any player on that team. And they've been playing bad. They haven't been on the same page. But like today, a big win on the road. Like today, it helps. You just got to keep the momentum going. We said that about the Jets game, and we kind of laid flat again. So hopefully we roll through this coming week.
Yeah, and Kyle, for guys like us, when we look at the comments and see some of the things people write about us, that's just a small taste of what guys like Mike and Tua deal with. So I know you've seen and heard everything over the years that has been said, written, what have you, about these two guys. And they are joined at the hip, for better or for worse, till death do them part, I hate to say, or firing or cutting or whatever. But, to see the way that they stepped up today and to pick up a win like that, as a guy who loves this franchise, you're one of the biggest Dolphin fans I know. Are you super encouraged by this? Do you think I don't want to say all the problems have been solved, obviously, because you have 2 wins on the season, but how encouraged are you by this? And how happy are you to see that Mike stuck with Tua and that Stephen Ross has stuck with Mike?
Yeah, I think if you're trying to get as accurate of a snapshot as you can on what changes need to be made, getting a big enough sample size is helpful in that. And realistically, you're not going to hire a new coach tomorrow. Had you lost this game, you're not going to hire a new coach that's going to fix all your problems and be the guy that you're going to roll forward with for the next 10 years, right? So it is 1 of 17, but it is a mark. And this is at the beginning of the season when it kind of became apparent that there was going to be some growing pains and some struggles, and there were some things where maybe you were still ramming your head against the wall. I try to come into every week with the thought process and ask you my question: were all of the individual pieces of the puzzle, were they part of the problems that Miami's having, or were they part of the solution and how to make them better? And I certainly look at a game like this, and whether that's Anthony Weaver and Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa, like these are all solution individual results. Now you have to get to however many games you're going to give this entire collective and tally it up and see how many fall on either side of that spectrum, and then make decisions on what you think is best. And I don't have any problem celebrating this for what it was, as a very impressive performance for Tua and an efficient game, even though, yes, he gets a little skittish there on the out pattern to Malik Washington and he sails the throw and it could have been a completion, or he doesn't get the screen pass high enough where it could have been a touchdown off of it and it's deflected and it's almost picked after the television broadcast tried their best to jinx it. They put the graphic up and said, the Dolphins have scored on every possession in the red zone this season, and the very next play is damn near an interception that you have to have an offensive lineman break up an interception after the ball gets tipped up in the air. I said, man, it's like the kicker jinx, right? Don't talk about how many kicks in a row an offense kickers made. Just let it be. But I think for me, you take it for what it is as 1 of 17, and it's an impressive and a good performance in 1 in 17. But for me, like, it doesn't change anything about the conversation's big picture that we're trying to explore and have conviction with, because you need to let this continue to play itself out. And I think if Stephen Ross chose to make the changes earlier in the year, he'd have been justified to do so, but he didn't. So we continue onward and we continue to evaluate on a week by week basis. And that's, for me, the very first thing I said at the top of the show was, I like seeing guys play with pride, because those are the kinds of guys that you want, no matter what it looks like moving forward, no matter who's here, who's not here, all that kind of stuff. So that I celebrate efforts like this, regardless of what the big picture conversations are that we're having with the team.
Yeah, and Z, I'm going to throw this on you with your guy, Coach Weaver, because those 2 games against the Panthers and the Chargers, when the defense blew the leads late, when the offense gave them the lead late in those games, and then you looked at the Cleveland game last week where they scored 14 points with 2 yards of offense, the pick 6, and then the one where they took it down to the 2-yard line, maybe unfairly, fingers pointed at the defense in that game, but no fingers can be pointed at the defense today. They played their best game of the season. They were on fire from the start. And I want to throw him in there as well, because everybody has wanted his head this year.
Yeah, they sure did. And I thought, like I said, I think he called a great game today. You know, he had those guys ready to play, and they played with a lot of energy, and they kept coming. They just kept coming all levels, you know, and what he's had to deal with, you know, the injuries, again, more injuries today on defense, you know, at positions that we are very thin at, and he still put a great performance out there.
Yeah, and I host the Canes postcast, you know, and what a difference a week makes for both teams. But they beat Stanford 42-7, and the chat was still calling for Mario Cristobal's head. Fire Shannon Dawson. Carson Beck still stinks. We're not going anywhere. So tough rooms, you know, even after a win and a big win. But I think today's win by the Dolphins is one of the most impressive wins I've seen in the NFL in a while, Kyle, because I know what it feels like, the pressure in this sport. And college football's always had a lot of pressure too, and especially with the NILs now, and the players are making big money. But the pressure to win in the NFL and the feeling you get when you lose is second to none in any sport. Every game, you have 17 games. Baseball, you know, huge long season. NBA, super long season. NHL. Every game in football means so much. Every win means so much. And in a league where you can go 1-5 and still make the playoffs, 1-6, 1-7 teams have made the playoffs, and especially with a 17-game season, right? anything's possible, especially in this league where teams are so up and down. So if you can catch any kind of momentum, if you can catch Baltimore slipping a little bit on Thursday, they've been a huge disappointment, the Ravens. So as we transition into the final segment of the show with the Ravens coming up and the Dolphins coming off this win, it's a perfect illustration. These two teams, many of us thought going into the season would both be playoff teams, two of the biggest disappointments in the league.
Yeah, it sets the stage for a really fascinating matchup, especially with Baltimore and trying to figure out what's going on with Lamar Jackson, who was a full participant in Friday's practice, and then magically he was not a full participant as of Saturday for Friday's practice because he ran the scout team, and then the Ravens reclassified his practice designation, and then he was out because he was expected to play, and now the reports say that he was expected to play. He's expected to play on Thursday, but the reports going into their bye week, which was this past week, was that he was expected to return coming out of the bye this week against Chicago. So, like, maybe we see Lamar Jackson, maybe we don't. But I think that matchup on a short week, you always have advantages of being the home team on a short week and not having to do the travel. And if they don't have Lamar Jackson, like Snoop Huntley, who Dolphins fans are very familiar with, is capable of running some similar things, and they had some success on the ground game. I think they ran for 175 yards against Chicago this week. But they're obviously looking to dig themselves out of a big hole as well. And whether it's a blessing or curse, the Dolphins' record this year through 8 games is 2-6. The Dolphins' record last year through 8 games was 2-6, and they got back to 8-8 before they ultimately lost that Week 18 game. So, you wish you didn't dig yourself into these big holes, and it was like 22 and 23 when you started super fast and you were 8-3 through 11 games, but they're not. And obviously these are some of the conversations I'm sure they're going to have as they try to lean on each other to pick up the pieces and move forward. And you don't have to wait long for your next opportunity. And I think it's a really fascinating game because, to your point, both of these teams have a lot of ground to try to make up for conversations about what they want this season to be.
And you said a lot of ground to make up. How apropos is that? Because both of them got back to the basics to pick up their second win of the season today with the ground game, the Ravens and the Dolphins. We picked this up on the other side. It's the Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Greasy and Kyle going to keep it rolling and wrap it up in just a minute as soon as Kyle brings you a word from another one of our sponsors. Hang out with us right here on the Squad Show.
The NBA is back on the hardwood. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or if you want to ride a hot hand throughout the course of the game, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next points to who gets the fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at even bigger payouts. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late-game push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your first game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Hey, come on. There we go. Everything's sticking today, but we got it. Here we are. All those handsome faces and then mine in one spot. And look at, even this guy can be happy today. Dan Marino was in the suite last week. You see him over my shoulder there? That's my autograph picture of Dan Marino. But Danny was seen in a suite. It was either last week or the week before. And the look on his face, man, the look on his face. Absolutely. I mean, you'd have thought Finkel and Einhorn were coming after him again. You know what I'm saying? Oh, man, crazy. But it's a good win, right? But it is only one. Unfortunately, you can't get a win that gives you a couple games in the standings, right, Z? So it is just one win. You have to celebrate it, though. So what's that period like when a team's been struggling like this? What's that feeling like in that locker room, on that plane, headed home after you played a game like this with your backs against the wall in a season that has completely gone off the rails, and you come out and respond with a performance like that?
Well, you celebrate it, but again, it's a short week. So tomorrow you're not going to even watch the game. You're writing the game planning. You're getting ready to get your body right because Tuesday's a Wednesday. So now you like sped up. It actually is a Wednesday, Thursday, really, and everything's sped up. So you can't really enjoy this week. Maybe on Friday you enjoy too, But being a short week, there's not a lot of celebration going on. Like tonight on the flight, there will be. But the guys will start winding down and knowing that they have a short week to get healthy, to get the game plan in, and be ready, to take on the Ravens.
Even with the rules changes, Z, and I want to keep it with you, a Thursday night game. I know a lot of players hate Thursday night games. How in the world? Jim Kick used to tell me his body, by the time he was over 30 years old, every year it would take another day to get ready, right? When you're in your early 20s and you're first in the league, you're ready to go again on Monday or Tuesday. But then, as you get a little older, your body doesn't respond till Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday for the next week's game on a Sunday. How do you get your body ready for a Thursday game after a physical game like today?
You lie to yourself. That's what you do.
Okay.
I ain't gonna lie. Like, I was 39 my last year playing, and I played a Thursday night game, and I felt everything from the previous Sunday. So I just kept saying, well, what are you going to do? You got to play. That's why I say you lie to yourself. You just do. He's like, I know that I have a 3-day weekend coming up. That's where I'm going to get healthy. And you just go through the week. There's not a lot of hitting this week. Usually your, walkthroughs nowadays, walkthroughs are pretty much the rest of the year for most teams. But like, especially on a Thursday night game, you're not putting the pads on. You're going out there getting your walkthroughs in. It's a completely mental week where you got to be on it with the film study, the notes, and then the walkthrough's got to be precise because, again, it's not physical week. It's the week to get healthy and mentally right for the game.
Yeah, and Kyle, that's a big thing because both teams have to do it, but being at home, not having to travel, to your point that you made in the last segment, and the Ravens coming off a win, and obviously, everybody knows it feels better when you win than when you lose, but in my mind, I guess I'm thinking, all right, we need to win this one on Thursday, then we get 2 wins in 4 days, go to the Bahamas for a couple of days, go to the Keys and catch some fish, do something to unplug from the game, but you have to stay locked in for a longer period than you normally do, right, Kyle? Because you're sitting there and you're going, it's a short week. You don't have that break to kind of regain your focus and all that. You have to stay locked in through that Thursday night.
Yeah, to Z's point, this week being a mental week with Derrick Henry coming to town and potentially Lamar Jackson and what that does for your run defense and the downhill and simultaneous horizontal stress it can put on a defense, specifically the defense, the last 2 weeks being what they've been from a momentum standpoint and how they've executed, where last week it was really the one run to Quinshot Judkins for 40-plus yards and a touchdown, and this week they had the screws on for 60 minutes. You need that, and hopefully this is the positive reinforcement, and you come out and you have the opportunity, and Baltimore's had some questionable interior offensive line play this season with both their guard spots have kind of been problematic. So it kind of sets the stage, I think, for another good litmus test. And I like what Z said there about this is a preparation week. This is a between the ears week. Okay, it's another opportunity to evaluate the coaches for the messaging that they're giving and how well the guys take it and how well they stay plugged in. So that's where we talked a little earlier about taking each week for what it is and an evaluation opportunity. It's a different way to evaluate this team this week, and let's see what they do with it.
Yeah, and the Ravens got smoked. I mean, their offense did nothing without Lamar. I mean, it's 10 points against Houston in a 44-10 loss. They got beaten by the Rams 17-3, but they got better today with Snoop at QB. But I know one thing for sure, Z, as a defensive lineman, when you get 3 days rest before you have to go tackle Derrick Henry 20-plus times, I mean, that's no fun either.
Well, it's not just Derrick Henry. That quarterback can move around. So now you have to have a game plan to keep him in the pocket, make him a quarterback, not a dual threat quarterback. We got kind of lucky today because we had a guy that's a pocket passer, not a guy that runs around anymore. Penix gives you that threat, and we have to go against him today. But this week, we got a dual threat quarterback we got to deal with. We got to deal with the king, at the running back spot, right? He likes to roll downhill. So it's going to be a good challenge for our defense to see exactly where we're at this point.
Yeah, no doubt. And Kyle, I'm looking to this game and I'm thinking both teams are going to want to continue with what they've done with the running game. So then it almost becomes a battle of wills. But I saw some things today with the Dolphins run game, some wrinkles, some things out of the backfield with both guys, more of Ollie Gordon. You incorporate Jaylen Wright. So now all of a sudden, even with Waller out and no Tyreek Hill, they really have to plan for what that backfield's able to do now, that three-headed monster at tailback. There's not a team in the league that goes as deep at tailback as the Dolphins right now. Yeah,
it was nice to see Jaylen Wright get involved because I thought he had some nice flashes his rookie season, and then he kind of fell by the wayside. And it feels like it's a lot of the non-ball assignments or what's limiting the guys that are not Devon Achane. Because Mike likes guys that present a passive run and a pass threat in the game. So if your pass game assignments, whether that's in pass protection or whether that's as a pass catcher, if that's not up to speed, like Mike's usually going to just defer to Achane because you have to account for more possibilities when he's in the game, right? So to see kind of that emergence start to take hold, and a Baltimore team that defensively has not been great this season. I think they dressed 3 outside linebackers this week in this game. They just signed Carl Lawson to the practice squad, but he wasn't elevated to play this week. And he could still go and rush the passer a little bit, but you're missing Nnamdi Madubuike, who's on injured reserve and is out for the season. They kind of have been tested in the front 7, and they run a very similar scheme to what Miami does with Zach Orr. Both of those guys, both Anthony Weaver and Zach Orr, were working with Mike McDonald, who's the head coach now in Seattle. So there should be some familiarity with the scheme and what they're trying to do and how you can successfully manipulate that. And I think that helps for game planning on a short week as well. Now, that obviously cuts both ways because the Ravens will have the same conversations internally as what the Dolphins are. But yeah, I agree with you where what they did this week, going a little heavier, leaning into some heavy stuff, being committed to the run game the way that they were, that should be, I think, the recipe every week. And it's just a matter of what wrinkles are we doing to get there as compared to how much are we going to try to air the ball out? Are we going to try to throw the ball all over the field? It just doesn't feel like that's really what this skill group is best suited to do for you at this point. So play a different brand of football and commit to it. And you saw that today, and it bore fruit for you.
Yeah, and they will be able, I think, to run the ball on the Baltimore defense, hit some big plays maybe off of that. But what a difference. I mean, you could point to the Ravens' struggles and say Cooper Rush. I know watching him over the years with the Cowboys, but, I mean, he had no touchdowns and 4 picks in relief of Lamar. They went to Snoop Huntley. But Lamar Jackson obviously is one of the best players in the league and one of the best players of this era, this generation. I mean, the guy's a 71.5% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns, and 1 pick on the season. So clearly, and I want to ask you after this, Z, how you game plan when you don't know if a guy's playing or not, especially a guy like Lamar, and you're just happy regardless of whether he plays or not. But Kyle, such a different team without Lamar Jackson, obviously, and that so don't let their record fool you. Most of that's Lamar being out.
Well, what was interesting was even when Lamar was playing, and I think he had 10 touchdowns the first 3 games, and they blew a 15-point lead to Buffalo in the second half of the fourth quarter in week 1, and then Detroit ran over them. When Detroit came to town and played them, I think that was a Monday Night Football game, and it was a primetime showcase, but Lamar was playing in those games, and the defense was super porous. So Lamar being back really changes the calculus for how explosive the passing game can be. But now that they've made the transition from Rush to Snoop as the backup quarterback, they have the same math problem that they can present as far as how many hats you need in the box to fit the run, unless everybody is successfully going to be playing a gap and a half. And that's kind of where you have the potential to have 2 guys who stick their nose in the same gap, and now you're deficient as far as your fits, and that's where you're prone to explosive plays. And these are not the guys that you want to be given a gap with momentum into the second level of your defense. So I think if it ends up being Snoop, there's some things that I would expect they will probably have the same mentality as far as what they did in this week, where, hey, it changes what our back end needs to look like so we can be that much more stout in what we do in the front. To play the numbers game and force low percentage throws. I mean, you saw the ones where Kirk's checking at the line of scrimmage and guys aren't on the same page, and they're pulling up and running hook routes, and he's sailing the ball downfield, or he's throwing it outside expecting the guy to break out, and the guy breaks inside. So there was a number of those in this game. And if it's not Lamar Jackson, that's what you want to do in this game coming up for you as well.
And Z, as a defensive lineman or a defensive coach, how do you prepare for one or the other? And obviously one of them being all world and one of them, and obviously with Huntley having been here last year, not everybody's back on defense. A lot of guys missing, but the coaches are here. How much does it help that you practiced against him and he was your quarterback for part of last season?
Well, you know what he can do and can't do, so you get the edge on that. So, if he's a deep ball thrower, not deep ball thrower, or what his strengths and weaknesses are. You know that because he's in the building. But they are similar though. I mean, he's still gonna run around. I mean, I was watching a little bit of the game today against the Bears, and he has some long runs now. So he's not as elusive as Lamar, but he's still, he's still got some run in him. He's not just going to sit there and sit in that pocket and pat the ball. So you have to game plan similar, but you're also going to have think about having a spy if it is, the other guy.
All right, Z, I'm going to keep it with you because we're wrapping it up here. This show went by fast. It's always fun after a win. Your final thoughts on the 34-10 win and this team moving forward toward Thursday night and beyond?
Just stay with the game plan as last week. Get that run game going. Shrink that game. We talk about it all the time to the defense. Shrink it, especially when you have if Lamar does play, you have an elite quarterback coming to town, with a defense that's getting some momentum and is putting some good, tape on and good reps in. You got to shrink the game. You got to get the run game and keep that quarterback off the field.
Kyle, your final thoughts, and then also on a short week for Locked On Dolphins podcast, what do you have ready for the audience?
Yeah, the rest of the week we'll have our crossover Thursday with Locked On Ravens and Kevin Ostreicher. That'll come out on Thursday, the day of the game. Obviously, we have our post game. We have our live on Wednesday, so there's going to be a lot of action there on that Wednesday-Thursday stack. We'll probably be quick in and out of the film study as best as we can. We'll do our Club Dub episode of Locked On Dolphins tomorrow, kind of diving more into some of the moments of the game that stood out to me as far as pivotal moments, and get a chance to watch the film tomorrow morning before I record that. And my final thought for this game is I'm going to bring the flowers back to Mr. Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle, 4th in the NFL in EPA per target since week 5. And amongst all NFL wide receivers with at least 5 targets per game. So he is amongst the most productive receivers in the league when you're targeting him since Tyreek Hill has left the lineup. And I would expect the Dolphins to go heavy, pound the rock, make those targets count, get those explosive plays. We're getting at least one every single week, and hope this defense continues to take steps forward. If it does, we might be celebrating 2 wins this week here on Locked On Dolphins and the Locked On Dolphins squad show.
Yeah, and for me, that duo at tailback, and I'll throw Jalen right in there too with the game-breaking speed if they use him correctly, and he had 28 yards today as well. But Achane with Ollie Gordon, that 1-2 punch. Gordon in short yardage situations looking real good. And then, of course, Jaylen Waddle, Malik Washington, all these weapons, right? But my final thought is none of those weapons can be engaged without winning up front. And Jordyn Brooks can't play the game he played without the defensive line winning up front. So the line of scrimmage was controlled by the Dolphins today. That was, and always will be how you win in the NFL. So props to them for doing that. Hopefully they can continue it on Thursday. And hey, we don't want to hear about the players, guys, with that Sunday, Thursday turnaround. We have a Wednesday, Thursday turnaround this week with the squad show. We're Wednesday at noon Eastern with our midweek edition, and then post game on the Thursday, and then maybe 1, 2, 3 Cancun for the weekend or something like that. But for Kyle Krabs, Locked On Dolphins podcast, best in the business, make sure you keep watching and listening to him every day. For Jeff Scanina, former Dolphin, former NFL coach as well. Maybe not for good. Maybe he'll coach again one day, but he's loving the broadcasting gig. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Grease. Thank you for being here for your Dolphin Squad Show post-game edition. 34-10, the final. Best and most complete game of the season. And in the words of the late, great Mad Dog Jim Mandich, all right, Miami. Make sure you come back on Wednesday for another edition of the Squad Show.